I'm very sad to not be there with you. I would rather be there live, but I'm joining you via Zoom, and I'm thankful for it, for organizing it. So I am actually in my study room, and there is a saying that the look at someone's working table can tell you a lot about the person who is at it. Seeing plenty of working spaces of both curators and artists, one might say there is more Excel tables, invoices, and project sheets than books and images, as if the job consists mainly in administrative tasks, but then, like in some magician's trick, the paperwork suddenly disappears from view and remains hidden at the actual exhibition or presentation of the project. The contemporary digitally run administration of projects can remind us on the network society, described as space of flows and timeless time by Manuel Castells, but also on an early vision of techno-scientific world and its full administration, noted in the short story by Franz Kafka. The Bureau can be seen as a parable of today's hyper-connected but atomized world and its symptoms of obsessional neurosis, where our forehead is actually the only instrument. So in the Bureau, and despite the stubborn efforts of the protagonist in building an usable space, there is always more work to be done. The longed peace and reward for the finished activity is perpetually postponed. If anything is to be changed, the Bureau seems to show us, it's not from hypothetical outside, but from inside the system, with the question that remains: how can we transform the established rules in favor of more comfortable and more usable system? Similar to the Kafka labyrinthic space, the vast system of today's exhibitions is also built on cognitive and material work, triggering both pleasure and neurosis. What persistently remains out of sight is the fact that the exhibitions are established on the material basis, on documents and protocols, including non-transparent money transactions. As an exception, which is less known due to geopolitical location, meaning low budget and then low media coverage, also very sparse photo documentation, I would mention this exhibition, Recycle Bin. The show was made during the transformational phase of the Museum of Contemporary Art in Belgrade in 2001, with curators and director entering the institution from the NGO and intending a revision of the existing situation. The Recycle Bin was largely inspired by the rich conceptual legacy in Yugoslavia, and especially by the aesthetic of administration emerged from mockery of bureaucratic and institutional forms, later known as institutional critique. The Recycle Bin disrupted the museum business as usual. It inverted the classical exhibition, its fine art aesthetics, and linear progressions of styles and movements based on masterpieces. In place of solitary artistic objects, the exhibition dealt with art's material level, with production and economic relations that silently pervade cultural institutions. Recycle Bin undermined the ideas of artistic autonomy and independent cultural subjects as the conceptual foundation of Western, but also Yugoslav modernism. Instead of the permanent exhibition with canonical works, everything that makes up a technological gut of the institution itself, let's say its inventory, appeared in the exhibition space. This is also indicated in the exhibition title, which used the IT analogy of Recycle Bin, that which is for waste but has not been completely destroyed. And as we know, in the digital world, it also cannot totally vanish. The setup included partly obsolete and dysfunctional things from the socialist era, on which contemporary museum has been established. Old computers, typewriters, protocols, documents from the archive, concerning artistic and non-artistic issues of the functioning of the institution. The entire exhibition space was settled with hidden museum apparatus, which was arranged like real exhibits, so on the walls, on pedestals, within the display cases. At the same time, Recycle Bin emphasized a self-ironic attitude towards the curatorial role. In terms of a figure, inseparable, however, from the behind the scene of the management and of the administration. In curator's word, by Sretenovic, the author is not a stable, creative self that precedes the work, but a function related to the legal and institutional system that surrounds, integrates, and determines discourses. So, as more related to the bureaucratic practicalities of every day, I would like to show the exhibition Holy Bureaucracy, Where Are You Taking Us? It was held as a 61st edition of Poreča Annale in Croatia, and the Annale is the oldest exhibition in Croatia dedicated to contemporary art, but through years it has been mainly conceived as thematic representation of new artistic works, praising of good practices. In contrary to the perception of art as the call of the muse, with Holy Bureaucracy, I wanted to present artists in real working conditions, while exposing the conventional work mantra that artists do what they love, as covering up the everyday of artists dealing with precarious conditions. So the various forms of paperwork, applications, permits, certificates that a proper citizen inevitably fills in daily were interpreted in the works of 11 artists and art groups, spanning the last 70 years. The earliest were proto-conceptual pieces by Gorgona. So here you can see some. And although created during socialist times, they can be seen as anticipating the ubiquity of administrative apparatus, spreading beyond its specific domains of public and political services. We can read their absurd protocols and petitions, which play with limitations and imposed uniformity of administrative language. One of the recent installations was made by young artist Iva Čurić. By employing a hacker-like approach, Čurić alters her personal data and makes deliberate mistakes investigating the accuracy of the system. This approach enables her to depart from the belief in the system as infallible, the system which, with its statistic and number games, gives impression of rationality. Although in analog form, the installation underlines the advanced settings of codes and algorithms that we are not able to read, as if we have created a world that we cannot understand fully and in which we slowly lose insight into what is really happening. In the book New Dark Age, the artist and writer James Bridle expresses similar issues. Computational thinking is not something that programmers or computer scientists are exclusively concerned with. It is primarily the logic of producing information in a network society. It is growing, but not in parallel to our understanding of the increase of information. We need, he's saying, a new stenography that at the same time acknowledges the reality in which people, politics, culture, and technology are intertwined to the limit. With modular office-style furniture and overall blue visual code as a reminiscence of Brussels administration, Holy Bureaucracy dealt with the impenetrable and irrational administrative protocols, with their restrictive forms always generating more forms. It attempted to expose bureaucracy as a semi-visible management system, which is simultaneously time and energy wasting. So it has really physical effects. Its main protagonist, the system of quantification, accelerated through World Wide Web, of whose potential of control the old bureaucracy could only dreamt about, appeared in the metaphor of holy entity, operating continuously and remaining untouchable. Within the framework of allegedly rational and apolitical bureaucratic system, we can ask ourselves what is happening to arts when it has to be definable and measurable, steered by the mechanisms derived from business management. As curator and educator Maria Lind has noted, reviews and assessment often lead to a demand for more, and presumably better reviews and assessments. Ultimately, they are used as an instrument of control to make people do what you want them to do. The protocols for doing so go by various names. Revision and quality control are some of them. But in contrast to Benjamin Buchloff's aesthetic of administration, it has more to do with methodology, protocols, and rituals than visual aesthetics. It has to do with the performance of bureaucracy. The final and the largest exhibition I want to present is Art at Work, at the crossroads between utopianism and independence, still on view at the Museum of Contemporary Art Metelkova in Ljubljana. The most intriguing aspect of the exhibition, at least within the framework of this paper, is its concern with the growing influence of bureaucracy, although it's not named as such, but more euphemistically described as new public management, meaning dependence of arts on public funds and project work. It exposes the dubious side of project work that relies on counting, evaluating, and planning in arts, thus implying the possibility of pre-designing the results of artistic works that can be used to implement specific political and social goals. The exhibition Art at Work is based on the widely known collection Art East 2000+. It is established after the end of socialism, and instead of the usual national representation of art, it has been proposing internationalization of the museum, while shifting the canon of the object-based art with the conceptual, post-conceptual, and socially engaged practices. Art at Work reflects upon changes of the regulations of artistic work since the transition from socialism, within the labor system in the southeastern regions and in parallel to the dismantling of the welfare state, when the idea of social influence of art started to be very well promoted. The show sets in with the changes of artistic practices in the 60s, with their refusal of classical art canons that ironically commented on conventional productivity and imposed workers' norms. Specific examples would be homemade movies by Vukica Đilas, created over a period of 20 years, or love letters by Marika and Marko Pogačnik from the time of Pogačnik's service in the Yugoslav People's Army, which advocate time freed from labor and functional purpose. Both works emphasize the pleasure of imagination and unrestrained sensuality, finding eros in seemingly banal and absurd activities. These and similar neo-avant-garde practices introduced the notions of indolence and daydreaming, mocking the regular work and its bureaucratic procedures, where the enjoyment disappears. Hello? It seems that today...
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. It seems that today, in the age of late post-Fordism, the former utopianism of artists and collectives is being replaced by incessant production and consumption, with blurred distinction between paid and non-paid labor, working and free time, as if the obsession with production is replaced with general management, where everybody becomes fully employed in self-administration, with supposedly individual responsibility for her or his own failure. Here we can also read the curator's words. So while working conditions for artists can hardly be said to have been much better under socialism, at least artists were masters of their own time. So at the exhibition, Art at Work, we can follow the changes in the status of artistic work, especially in terms of creative time, which has been converted into hectic project time, dictated by the deadlines. The artist's role is shown dangerously close to that of the entrepreneur, with flexible creative work as the foundation of the neoliberal matrix of exhaustion. We can return here to Buchloch's term aesthetic of administration, but in inverted mode, as performance of administration, focusing the banal processes behind the stage of presenting art, in order to mark art, which reveals the relations of production that are usually covered up or avoided. What the exhibition seems to be proposing is mediation of artists as being of nerves and shortitude, instead of the romantic ideas of artistic genius. Therefore, instead of mystification of artistic role that assumes the work is made from passion in his or her free time, promising posthumous, so to say, godlike revelation, we would need to admit that imperatives of self-administration also build a real art experience. The art and the work, the system and the subject are not so much counterposed as they are paradoxically entangled. And in the overall performance of administration, also the artists are becoming bureaucrats, covering very wide range of its meanings, so sometimes dull, sometimes inventive. They have to continuously compete in terms of cleverness, cunningness, and tactical strength. They also nourish the values of friendship and trust, the drive to argue, to fail, and even break. So we can ask ourselves, how much time can we actually invest to reimagine different and more usable institutional infrastructures? Thank you. I hope it worked via Zoom.
Thank you so much. Thank you.